We are now under general public comment. There will be a 2-minute time limit. The light at the podium will be green for the first minute and a half. Then a bell will ring and the light will turn yellow, indicating you have 30 seconds remaining. At the 2-minute time limit, the bell will turn red and the bell will ring once again, indicating that your time has expired. I will call the first 5 names, and once your name has been called, please come to the front. There is seating available for you, and be prepared to speak. The first speaker is Don Schrader, followed by Rowan Weimark, followed by Downey X, followed by Leonard Waits, followed by Joanne Fine. Thank you. Next speaker, Rowan Weimark.
Rowan.
Go ahead and proceed. Yes.
Rowan, not Rowan. I actually know someone called Rowan. It's not me. I'm here. Oh, Mr. President, council members, I'm here yet again. I was here a few months before to address the issue of Mr. Edward Harness. I find it very difficult to believe that not renewing his contract is even being considered, because, as I said before, and I'll say it again, when the mayor appointed Chief Gaia, he said he didn't want to have somebody coming in from another part of the country who is not familiar with the DOJ, not familiar with the CASA, not familiar with any of the process. To not renew Mr. Harness's contract is going to be changing horses midstream, and that would be extremely detrimental. And the other thing is, as a CPC chair, I've had pretty direct experience of Mr. Harness, and I have not been anything but impressed by his professionalism, his knowledge, and his courtesy, and his general demeanor. And so I'm just sorry that it's even under consideration and that it's taken this long to even come to the point where you're voting on it again. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Leonard Waits. Welcome, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President, Councilman, good evening. I'm Leonard Waits, the chair of Police Oversight Board. I've been a volunteer for the Oversight for the last 6 years and worked alongside Council members Winter and Garduño in establishing the city ordinance now governing the oversight process in Albuquerque. The innovative collaborative work done to establish this ordinance was exceptional and in fact preceded the CASA. Since that time, the POB has counted on the council for unanticipated needs to accomplish this mission. For example, early on, we realized we needed our own lawyer, not a city attorney, to advise us on matters at issue with the city, and also to avoid any propriety or appearance of impropriety. The council made those funds available. Since the CASA was signed, there have been conflicts between the CASA and the city ordinance. Example includes the use of mediation, how independence is defined in each instance, and the value of subpoena power in oversight. In June of this year, we submitted to you suggested changes to the city ordinance to bring it into compliance with the CASA. Also in June this year, having completed the annual evaluation of the executive director, we submitted a letter to the council president requesting that the 3-year contract for Ed Harness be renewed, as it was set to expire in October 2018. The evaluation process included board members, staff, CPC members, amici members, and other stakeholders. The evaluation was very favorable and led to a unanimous vote of POB to retain Mr. Harness and seek a raise for him, which he has not received.
Your time has expired. Thank you. Joanne Fine. Okay.
which he had not received since he was hired in October of 2015. We have also shared our concerns with Council about 3 vacancies in the 9-seat board, with an additional 2 seats set to expire in February of 2019. To date, we have not received notice of when these seats will be filled or reconfirmed. This places an extremely heavy burden on the POB, the few in this process who are volunteers. We are concerned that these 3 issues may be part of a larger effort to control, politicize, or diminish the involvement of civilians in bringing constitutional policing to Albuquerque. While we applaud the Council's initial vision, we are worried about 3 important things which threaten our mission: the contract status of our independent executive director, the continued conflicts between the ordinance and the CASA, and the choice to not fill or confirm a full complement of POB board members. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Simonson, followed by Dorothy Woodward, followed by Bernadette Garcia de Rodriguez, followed by Simon Polakowski, and the last speaker will be Andreas Mata. Welcome, Mr. Simonson.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Council. Thank you for receiving my comments this evening. My name is Peter Simonson. I'm the Executive Director for the ACLU of New Mexico. I'm also, our organization is also a member of APD Forward, a coalition of roughly two dozen organizations from around the city that represent segments of our community that have been affected by the police department's past pattern of excessive use of force. I sat on the task force that was assigned to try and make proposals to reform the Police Oversight Commission a couple of years ago, and I think that the results of those reforms have given this city a police oversight body that we should all be proud of here in Albuquerque. It's compared to many such bodies around the country. It exercises a great deal of independence. It not only reviews officer complaints, but also looks at patterns of problems with inside of the department, as well as examines policy issues. And it's staffed by incredibly skilled staff. It has dedicated volunteers working on our behalf. In reforming that police oversight body, the task force knew it was really increasing the workload of that agency, and as a result, decided to expand the size of the board to 9 people. As I understand it, we currently only have 3 of those positions are currently vacant, and they have remained vacant for quite some time now. I would just urge the Council to move as quickly as possible in filling those vacancies so that the body can actually carry out all of the work that's assigned to it. I will also be addressing Mr. Harness's contract when we reach that item on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Dorothy Woodward. Welcome.
Welcome. President Sanchez and council members. I am a member of the District 4 Coalition. I'm a member of the District 4 Coalition and the Northeast Area Community Policing Council. But today I stand before you as a private citizen, a member of this community, to state my support for the renewal of the contract for Mr. Harness. Since the spring of 2016, I have actively observed and followed Mr. Harness's work, specifically what he has done with and for POB and CPC. Like other residents, I vividly recall the years of dysfunction and fallout of the previous oversight agency. Because of Mr. Harness's work, I have witnessed the much needed positive change to POA and POB. He conducts his responsibilities with integrity, patience, and fairness. When his advice is sought, he offers clarity with an unbiased attitude of support and encouragement. In performing his duties to help the city move forward in the settlement agreement, Mr. Harness attends CPC meetings and APD Compliance Bureau meetings, and he serves as a facilitator for our CPC summits and presents statements before Judge Brack during hearings and status conferences. I know this. I know this because I attend these meetings. I am confident that Mr. Harness is right for the job and should continue. Thank you.
And now we are under item 13, and that is approvals. And it is item A, OC-8, that is the renewal of contract with Mr. Edward Harness, Director of the Civilian Oversight Agency. Do I have a motion for confirmation? We have a motion by Councilor Benton and a second by Councilor Davis. The council's authority in this matter is limited to confirmation of the CPOA director per the recommendations of the Police Oversight Board. While the POB appears to be recommending certain terms of the director's contract, those matters are not before the council this evening. According to this motion, this confirmation of Director Harness is limited, but is not in any way dealing with this contract this evening. Okay, we have a motion and a second for confirmation. We have 4 individuals that are signed up to speak. That is Leonard Waits, Joanne Fine, Peter Simonson, and Judith Minks. And again, once your name has been called, please come to the front and be prepared to speak.
Thank you, Council President. Again, my name is Leonard Waits. I'm the POB chair. Is the CPOA an independent agency or a city agency? Is the CPOA executive director independent of the city or a city employee? The CPOA, POB, and the city have been dancing around the issue of independence for nearly 4 years. The definitions seems to have changed depending on the issue. To be clear, the overreaching atmosphere has changed for the better since the mayor has changed and new chief has been hired. But the lines have been moving again lately. Specifically, it appears the lines have moved on who gets to decide who is chosen to be the executive director of the CPOA. Is it the Police Oversight Board or is it the City Council? Okay. The purpose of the CPOA and POB is to issue independence as it relates to civilian complaints, serious use of force, officer-involved shootings, training, research, policy matters, and community input regarding APD. Polarizing this effort, if allowed, will be its demise, such as a change will defeat and the desired effect to bring the community and the police department closer together around constitutional community policing. Ed Harness has been the executive director of the CPOA for over 3 years. The POB has chosen Mr. Harness because of his exceptional value and experience. His references were impeccable, stressing his fairness and commitment and determination. Joanna, finish.
Mr. President,
Councilor
as chair of the POB, I would suggest we hear the chair finish out his statement. I know that you're speaking on behalf of the board.
Well,
I know you have board members as well, so.
Yeah, I can finish. Thank you.
Go and proceed.
Council. He has been a police officer, and he also is a lawyer. Being a lawyer was a required qualification of his position. He also had experience with police oversight as a volunteer in his community. His references are impeccable, stressing his fairness, commitment, and determination. Based on his very favorable, inclusive annual evaluation and his job performance, his innovation, and his support from the community, we made the right choice. and more recently when we unanimously recommended his renewal of his contract to the council. That was last June. It is November. He is now working without a contract due to delays by this council. As a board, it is our belief that this counter to the CASA and the ordinance and the desire of the POB to whom he reports, it is also not fair to Mr. Harness. The big question is how the Police Oversight Board can maintain independence of the oversight process if the assessment of the executive director performance can be vetoed by the city council, by the council against our recommendation. We ask that you vote to renew Mr. Harness's contract. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Waits, I have one question. Sure. In regards to your statement, you said that we were dancing around this issue for the past 4 years. I think we have provided the POB and Mr. Harness the independence that board has needed to do their job and do it over the last 4 years. No one in this council has ever interfered in the work of the POB. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne Fine.
I would add that none of you have done anything but be supportive until we came to this moment in time and relative to renewing the contract. So I do see this, I think the board sees this as an interference with this. We don't understand, though we've had meetings with you, we don't understand why the council is considering not taking our recommendation. We don't understand that at all. And so if it is not what it looks like to us, then we would like to see that in your vote tonight. We'd like to see you support the unanimous choice of the board.
Thank you. Peter Simonson.
Mr. President, members of the council. Again, Peter Simonson on behalf of APD Forward. We also, APD Forward, would urge you to renew Mr. Harness's contract this evening. I can only echo the comments that others expressed about Mr. Harness's professionalism. We've also found him to be extremely collaborative. He's reached out to us on any number of occasions, and I feel as though our relationship with the civilian police oversight apparatus here in the city of Albuquerque is stronger than it's ever been in my 18 years as executive director for the ACLU. The POB has recognized already, you heard the comments about the unique set of skills that he brings to this position. He's a lawyer, he's a former police officer, he's someone who actually comes from a background of police oversight. We're lucky to have an individual of his caliber actually performing these functions. The POB voted to unanimously support his renewal. For the sake of honoring their independence, that is the POB's independence, as well as for the sake of their commitment as volunteers, I think we sometimes forget that these folks come to us and perform these jobs without any hope or promise of pay, and they devote hours and hours to that work, and they are trying to make the best decisions they can. They have obviously come to feel that Mr. Harness is doing a great job, and from our observation, we would agree. So again, we would urge you to renew his contract. I would also say we understand that the Finance and Government Operations Committee is looking at proposed amendments to the POB ordinance next week. We would love to see those with as much time in advance of that meeting as possible. We'd like to know what is up for consideration so that we can prepare ourselves for comments for that committee meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Benton.
Yeah, and just on that last topic of the review of the current draft of the bill, we just discussed that this afternoon, and you should be getting a copy of that from Mr. Melendres tomorrow, right? Thanks.
Great. Councilor Borrego.
Mr. Simonson?
Yes.
You mentioned that you represent APD Forward and ACLU. Who are you speaking on behalf of this evening?
I work for the ACLU, which is a member of APD Forward, so I'm here on behalf, I guess, primarily on APD Forward, but
Thank you.
I can't take my ACLU hat off, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Judith Minks.
Good evening. Because everything that I would have said has already been said, I'll go ahead and forego my time. I strongly support the renewal of the contract for Mr. Harness. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding the confirmation? Councillor Gibson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate everybody who came down and spoke this evening about this issue. And as I was talking with someone earlier today, just before the meeting, and I said, for several years now, at least 3 or 4 years, I haven't heard much about POB or from POB, so I thought everything must be going fine and dandy, and now there are a few things that I have some questions about that I would like some time to discuss and get some clarity on. So at first I did not support the deferral for this this communication, but I do now, and I guess it wouldn't be proper for me to talk with you. I don't know, maybe it is, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, I just do what they tell me to do. But I guess at this point I would rather, even if it causes some consternation among people on the board, I would rather take an extra beat, an extra couple weeks, whatever it is, and gain the clarity that would make me comfortable in me moving forward on this. I don't have any axe to grind with Mr. Harness. I certainly appreciate everybody on the board and all of the time that they put into this, but I'm feeling like I'm going to need some more time. So that's it. Thank you.
In needing more time, are you requesting a deferral as part of a motion?
Yes, Mr. President, I think I will move a deferral, one month deferral on this, please.
We have a motion and a second for a 1 month deferral on the renewal of contract with Mr. Ed Harness. Councilor Benton?
Second.
I've seconded that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, oppose this further deferral of this. It's been deferred for how long now?
Well, the initial deferral was for 90 days.
90 days. So I think if there are any questions, it's incumbent upon ourselves to answer those questions timely. Again, I think we're on. To be considering additional deferrals really puts us on shaky ground with regard to the independence that's required of this body that we're talking about. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Harris.
Oh, no.
Councilor Borrego? Basically, I will support the deferral. I also have some questions, some concerns also regarding the issues. I don't want to bring those up tonight. I think they're just too important. I'll bring one of them up. We look at the CPOA. They've had 15 cases still open from 2015, is what I am hearing. There are still in 2018 190 cases that are still open. I'm not sure how true that is. But that is a concern for myself, and I'd like to have those questions answered by Mr. Harness, if not the staff. But there is no way that we're trying to detract from the independence of the POB and the work that they have done. We've all stayed out of their business for the last 3 years that Mr. Harness has been confirmed. I've talked to him maybe just a couple of times, and this was on his confirmation. But again, I think that initially we looked at a 90-day deferral because we were looking at changing the ordinance and making sure that we wanted to make sure that Mr. Harness was comfortable with some of the changes that we were making and that he could work with us and live with them. I mean, we've got to find out if he wants to do the job after we've made these major changes in the ordinance, because there needs to be some changes. I mean, now we're looking at a contract which we can't even vote on. Basically, that's going to go to the HR department. We don't have that authority. We increased the police budget tremendously when we raised the gross receipts taxes by 3/8 of a cent. Right now your budget is based on a percentage of what the police budget is, that needs to be looked at, and there will be some changes hopefully also made there. But again, I will support a 1-month deferral. I don't think it creates any problems. Mr. Harness is still in his position, and I'd like that an additional time to hopefully get things worked out with the POB and Mr. Harness. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for a 30-day deferral of OC8. Those in favor, raise your hand and say yes. Yes. Those opposed? That carries on a 6-3 vote.